Hi and welcome back. We have been talking quite a bit about Battleborn. However, we have not really talked about what Battleborn is actually like or what it's about. And today I thought I'd remedy that. But before we start, if you haven't seen any of the previous videos, we have talked a lot about Battleborn because there is a way to play it. You see, Battleborn was taken offline in 2021. It is no longer playable for anybody, even if you purchased it. However, a part of the Battleborn community made a mod that allows you to bypass the login screen, thus allowing you to play the game again. At least the single player parts of it, meaning that you can experience the entirety of the story and so on of Battleborn. And I'll leave a link to a Discord server for the Reborn mod, as it's called, where you can sort of have a tutorial for how you download it and all of that. But with all that being said, if you're interested in playing it and have a copy of Battleborn on PC, you can go down there and then you can watch the tutorial and sort of be guided into how to play it. But with all that being said, let's get into it. To me, the setting of Battleborn is one of the game's biggest selling points. It is set in Solus, the last surviving star system in the universe. A alien race called the Rebelsi has wiped everything else out. And all the different races, all the refugees have come to Solus as the last place to live. However, Solus is under threat because the Rebelsi still wants to take over that. However, they have also gotten the help of a commander of an alien race called the Janet. And the commander Rendane has overthrown the government of the Janet to help the Rebelsi in exchange for the Janet's survival. So by helping the Rebelsi, Rendane gets to sort of keep his empire alive. They get to survive through this end of everything in exchange for helping the Rebelsi destroy the, well, solar system. However, a resistance group does exist within Solus, and they are essentially this amalgamation of different alien races who have not come together through liking or anything that sort of is positive, but through pure survival. They need to stick together, otherwise they will be wiped out. And that is where the Battleborn are well born. You get to pick from each of these different races, and you get to sort of play with that character, all of them having unique abilities. You know the selling point is a hero shooter. And while this is a really cool plot idea, unfortunately, Battleborn suffers from the exact same writing issues that Borderlands 3 does, mainly being that they attempt to force a joke in there literally every other line. It's an opinion thing. For some people, it is completely fine, they like it. For me personally, I really kind of just find it annoying. And it's a bit of a shame because the characters themselves are interesting. I do enjoy hearing about the stories. And you do that when you're playing through the different missions, where very often they take place on one of the three planets in the solar system with a main character sort of in focus, where you hear a little bit about them and you sort of get a vibe of their like connection to the rest of the squad. It's interesting enough. The issue is just that the dialogue itself ends up just not landing almost ever, which is a bit of a shame because Battleborn does have all the potential to have a really unique and interesting plot, and it just fails because of the dialogue in that, mainly in creating the interest, because the interesting plot is there, you just gotta dig a little for it. But if you can survive the humor, if you can survive the non-stop pun slandering type of humor, the really thing where you will be sitting and thinking, oh my god, shut the fuck up by the end, then you will be fine here. And fortunately for me, I can look past that. So what exactly is past the humor? Well, it's a really good hero shooter, quite frankly. I absolutely love the gameplay of Battleborn. From the mission structure being kinda mid, to the rest of the gameplay feeling completely refreshing every time you log in, because the different characters just have really genuinely unique abilities, and there being 30 plus of them, there are more characters than there are story missions. It is really fun. And it looks absolutely gorgeous as well. I love the art style here. The general way that Battleborn is cel-shaded, I just adore. And when you open the game, you get a fully animated cinematic intro with a custom-made song from Deltron that I had to track down, and it's called Countdown, from anybody wondering. It's absolutely amazing. And while I unfortunately can't really show it to you because of copyright on YouTube, I will link it in the description, and I do think you should go and check it out because it is insane what these people did for Battleborn. Like, absolutely crazy. But if we backtrack a bit, what was the entire thing with the mission structure that I mentioned? Well, to be quite frank, Battleborn has exactly 3 types of missions that you'll be playing through. It has escort missions, it has wave defense missions where you will have an objective that you then defend, and you can buy like different upgrades for some turrets and whatever. And then it has the objective based mission where you'll like linearly go through a level, which tends to be my favorite type of mission. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the game is escort mission, defense mission, then more escort mission. And are you tired of escort missions yet? I don't think you are. More of those. It genuinely sucks because it is so unique and it's actually pretty good overall. However, it's also really the only negative thing I have to say about the gameplay of Battleborn, if I'm being quite honest. The heroes themselves all have unique abilities and play quite differently from each other. Throughout this entire playthrough, I decided to use different heroes from each mission just to get a feel for a lot more heroes, and there wasn't once where I built it the same way or where I felt like they were playing the same. And that is partially because as you go through each level, your hero will level up to a maximum of 10. Each level grants you a different choice between 2 to 3 skills that you can pick from to then enhance one of your abilities. And it can be minor or it can completely change the way a hero plays. A good example is Cleese. Cleese is a scientist type of character. His entire thing is that he is crazy. His dialogue is not really funny when you are hearing him in a story setting, like in a cinematic or whatever. He kind of has the occupation of being this game's version of Claptrap. So if you don't like that, you probably won't like Cleese. However, when you have him in game, his one-liners are pretty funny and he plays like a mad scientist. He has all of these gadgets that he can use. He's flying on a fucking floating chair, and his special thing when you like press the spacebar twice is that he floats around and bounces around the room. It's weird, but his gun is really good because he has this armrest that shoots lasers, and the normal version of it is just that it plunks away like it normally would, like a semi-automatic weapon, right? You can just hold down the mouse 1 and then it like shoots in like bong bong bong, that pattern, right? However, at roughly level 4, I want to say, you can get an upgrade that changes that. It makes it a charge beam. Now initially I thought it would be a continuous laser beam that you then charge up and then it just shoot, because this guy has no reload normally either. But it isn't. It was a charge up laser and then you shoot it and then it does some damage. Now, I was immediately kind of disappointed about this. That was until I saw the damage numbers. Cleese can easily one-shot most enemies in the game. It is insane how much damage he does. Like, actually just fucking nutty. And if you compare that to another character, like El Dragon, who is a character that is very heavily based around wrestling. His entire moveset is melee based. Firstly, he only uses his fist to fight. He is right click, whereas with Cleese it's like pressing buttons and doing all tech stuff. With El Dragon, you clap. You just clap, and your clap is so powerful that you can upgrade it to send out a shockwave. His abilities include belly flopping on the enemies and running them over. This is obviously quite a big contrast, and El Dragon plays incredibly well as well. He is a strong character, and the build that I had going with him, I could basically just walk up to like the bosses in the missions and just slap them, just punch them as he starts to punch faster and faster until his ult is up, which then buffs his punches even further. It's really fun, quite frankly, and a lot of the characters are just really fun and really unique at that. If you take another random character to compare them to, like Kid Ultra, who's also very heavily science themed just like Cleese. However, Kid Ultra uses rockets as his main gun. He's more of a support type of character. All of his abilities surround healing, and his entire thing is being like a kid's cartoon brought to life type of character. And he's also really strong, especially if you build him right. with his normal left click being you just shoot your rockets, and his right click being that you shoot 3 of them at a time. And then he has abilities which allow him to deploy a drone that heals him, and you have your boulder snare that allows you to fire boulders that can, well, slow enemies or just deal a shit ton of damage to them. All of these characters play pretty differently, even if their theme and overall idea is the same. Obviously, Cleese is more of a damage dealer, whereas Kid Ultra is the ultimate support type of deal. But what I'm trying to say is just all the characters genuinely play differently. They play in a unique way that gives them their own personality, and a lot of it can be shown through the dialogue as well. Their one-liners or whatever fit really, really well to their character. And when you actually get to meet their character in the game, which not all of them are in the story, but some of them are, and the ones that are, you can see that their kit, their abilities, fit really well into the character in the story. Outside of just the characters, there's also this system called gear that essentially is different buffs you can give your character before you go into a mission. You can get more gear by playing through more missions, and as the more gear you collect, kind of like in every other game, the better your character probably is, with legendary gear being the rarest of it, but also often the strongest. However, in the Reborn mod, you can just kind of pick out whatever gear you want. You have all of it instantly unlocked, which is kind of nice. But at the same time, it does completely destroy the entirety of the collecting gear in the game type of deal, meaning that most credits and all of that is kind of useless. Because you see, there are containers and stuff scattered around the map that holds credits and other forms of currencies you can use to buy new gear in the store. There's also crates of gear that you can find in missions, but all of that really doesn't matter as it currently stands because it is instantly unlocked. However, as far as I understand, the Reborn mod are working on a way to like have both systems, so you can pick if you want to organically obtain your gear, if you just want it to be automatically unlocked. But it's just as far as I understand things. I'm not that smart. I don't know what they're working on. They're really smart people. Another thing I do know that they are working on is a form of multiplayer. I think that was mentioned in a Reddit post a while ago, and on the Discord, it is something that they are working on, specifically because multiplayer as it stands is, as far as I know, not playable. But I also haven't really been able to test it out fully myself, as I don't know anybody else who plays the game that would be willing to test this with me. Outside of that, there is this thing called operations, which are a form of missions that were added as DLC back in the day, and they essentially are just extra missions you can play in Battleborn, and they often have a different theme or go for something different. One of them is noir themed, with the honestly pretty funny dialogue of a thrall, like a slightly stupid quote unquote character type that are characterized by not being the smartest, and like the entire thing is like that character is a noir detective, and it's just kind of silly and it's kind of funny. I honestly kind of really like the dynamic. There's also a DLC story for Oscar Mike. Oscar Mike is a cloned trooper from a planet of clones of Oscar Mikes that are all military focused, and you have to go through like a military training program, and the entire thing is a play on like the stereotypical display version of like a military training camp. It's also really fun. I really like that one actually. Some of the dialogue also landed really well, at least for me, in it. There's one thing where they're like talking about how most of the mics are military men, and then the mic that is training you says something about artists and all of that, and your character like answers, so not all mics are military men, and the trainer sort of says back to you, no, all mics are military men. For example, Baker's Mike's battlefield is at home filling empty stomachs or something along those lines, and that one legitimately got me. I laughed out loud there. I thought that was fucking hilarious. Like, well played, well played. There's also one that's set on board of a spaceship where a character called Toby, who's a penguin that has a giant mech, has had his mech suit stolen by this greedy corporate looking seal, and the entire thing is like the seal being a little lazy, being a little baby speaker, and eventually you sort of beat the mech out of him, and then you get it back to like the penguin. It's fun. I like a lot of them. They are very playful and they take the story in different places. Although the last one I played was about how underneath one of the planets, how's like being held together, and how there's like an anomaly signal in there, and you go in there to investigate these old ruins, and it was really enjoyable. Really like that one, and it ends out with the Viralsi, the alien race, who hasn't spoken for the record throughout the entire game, actually speaking to you, although they eventually attack you anyway, which does leave the game at sort of a cliffhanger. Where it's like there could have been more here, there could have been more story here that just wasn't told, and it's a very, very unfortunate, in my opinion. Overall, Battleborn is a super unique game, and it really had some ideas that was ahead of its time. And you can even see it now with games like Overwatch 2 having considered adopting the PvE mission idea into their game, but ultimately didn't do it. Like Battleborn did that years before Overwatch 2, back when Overwatch 1 still wasn't released. I unfortunately don't think, however, Battleborn ever had a chance. It never stood on its own merits, and that's partially because it launched less than a month before Overwatch 1 came out, and that game was obviously very, very hyped at the time. That was like the thing people were waiting for. So even if Battleborn had come out and been a 10 out of 10 game, which I'm not saying that it is, I'll probably put it closer to like an 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Like, it's still really good, it's still really enjoyable. It's just that it has the writing style that Gearbox unfortunately has. And that's not a slight for anybody who likes it, it just doesn't land with me. But everything like that just doesn't matter, because the reality is Overwatch came out and Overwatch already have more hype behind it due to both the trailers, the open betas, and all of that, like leading up to Overwatch 1. It was also made by Blizzard, a company who's known for making quality games, at least was at the time, and I'd argue still is. So I think Battleborn never truly stood a real chance. I also think that the marketing campaign that was done before Battleborn was released really didn't do it any favors, with the fact that it was, from a first glance, kind of hard to discern what the game was going to be like. And I think that was a bit of a misstep because people didn't know. I didn't know, for one. But I'll be honest and say I think the universe deserves another chance. I think this game should be picked up, and I think in a day and age where some people are getting a little tired of Overwatch and craving something new, I think Battleborn might actually stand a pretty good chance as being that alternative. It's a shame to see a game this unique, this interesting, with this many good ideas, and that did so many things differently, like just sort of go away. If anything, I think Battleborn deserves to at least be playable and viable for the story. I mean, sure, it might not be your thing with the dialogue. I know that is a big deal for a lot of people, and to a certain extent for myself. But the universe and the art and everything else surrounding Battleborn is just so genuinely good. It's hard to imagine that it'll just be lost to time. And luckily, if you have a PC and you have a copy of Battleborn on Steam, it's not gonna be, because of projects like the Reborn project that have confirmed they're likely not going to be able to get it to PlayStation and Xbox and general consoles, right? Because they are just more closed down, and it sucks. It really does. Anyway, that has been about it for me. I know about the fact that PlayStation also came out and said something about how PC or like fucking physical media didn't really matter in the long haul for their like marketing strategy now officially. And like, I mean, that was sort of expected, I think, from everybody. I've been in this battle for preservation for a while. I just sort of wanted to give an update on it. I don't think it's worth a full video, you see. And like, yeah, it wasn't going to change over a day. There, like, finances haven't been impacted by it, and it's like, yeah, obviously, it's not been a month yet. I mean, no shit. And with the fact that GTA 6 is also right around the corner, I doubt that they're gonna feel any financial hit through the fact that there is a boycott going on. And I mean, while I will partake in that boycott, I do want to say that I really don't think it's going to change much in terms of PlayStation's actual stance on preservation and all of that. I think if we want that, we need to go and support stop killing games. But yeah, that's about what I have to say. Also, vote with your wallet. Next week, though, I do want to talk a little bit more about games in general again. I have a video coming about No West for the Wicked that I've had sort of laying around for a while, and I'm looking forward to talk about that game. So hope you'll enjoy that one. And I'll see you next week. Bye.